Here, there we go. I got to stand close. Are there any new hams in here? New licenses? Mm, there we go.
Yeah. Oh, does this one work? Try that. Me now. Oh, wow. So, anyways, just in case you didn't hear me, November 2, Delta Yankee Lima. Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Jesse. And do we have any guests other than the club? They'll introduce themselves in a few minutes. License upgrades? None seen. Awards and certificates. Okay, I'll pat myself on the back. Um, a couple of weeks ago, I put in the newsletter that I was hunting Maine on 20-meter digital, and I finally got them. So now I've got my little sticker to put on my wall art. Any others? No. I will jump in and say that we have a class going on right now. When I left the building where the class is being held, there were two students that were already there, even though the class started at 6:30. So with hope, we'll have more new hams coming in this next month. Next slide, please. All right. It's springtime, whether you believe it or not, with the rain. Springtime and summertime to me mean it's time to get out and start playing with my radio. So here's a list of events through the end of June that we have the opportunity to be involved with. Some of them are ones that the club works with exclusively, and others we've been invited to be involved with. Oh, I skipped over club sales, didn't I? Apologize. We have club sales going on in the back, and then we also have news swag that's available online, and that website is in the newsletter and also on the website. Dave, can you bring up Randy? If Randy, are you there?
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay. This is an event that we were involved with last year, and Randy was there, and we've been asked to be involved with this year. So Randy's going to talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I on?
You're on.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, we have been asked to once again come up to support the Derby, Pinewood Derby at the Cub Scouts at the Pearson Airport. And it's going to be the 25th of April. I have communicated that on the groups IO, W7AIA groups IO, gave the particulars in that. And it'll be in the weekly newsletter probably every time because I'd like to remind people. I'd like to get some volunteers in the groups IO item that I put on there. I have my phone number and also my email address. And it was just a blast last year. We really had a great time, had a good turnout, and we're going to have another good turnout this time. I just need some volunteers to help out. I'd like to have somebody with a POTA station come up and volunteer to bring their radio and their antenna. My wife and I are planning on being back in Vancouver area sometime in the middle of April. But if we could get people lined up and ready to go, I'd sure appreciate that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It really is. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to our illustrious president there. Brian, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Randy. And Aviation Day, do you want to talk about that, John?
We have an opportunity. We've been invited by a club member, Jeff Monroe, who works for Alaska Airlines and does communications for Alaska Airlines. They are having Aviation Day on May 9th at the uh, Horizon location down at the airport. It's basically, we're looking for 5 to 10 volunteers to help with setup, takedown, participating in a booth that celebrates ham radio. It's basically Aviation Day. It's a free event. It's sponsored by Alaska Airlines for youths ages 11 to 18. It's designed to give flight to young minds interested in careers with the air travel industry. Attendees participate in fun, informative activities and interact with aviation workers, devices, machinery. This is an opportunity for us to reach out to youth, get them involved in radio and ham radio. We did a similar booth at the Oregon State Fair this last year, and it was fabulously successful. I've reached out to ARRL, but ideally, I'd love for our club, to be the primary volunteers at the event. We're going to send out some information in the newsletter, but it's May 9th. Ideally, what we're looking for are people who can come and work the booth. I'll be there all day. Setup starts at 5:30. We need to be ready to go by 8:30. We go until 5:30. For those who are interested, we're also looking to have folks who are ready to be on 2 meters, possibly on HF, to communicate with folks who would be coming by the booth and under the supervision of a ham radio operator, giving them a chance to speak on the radio with somebody someplace else. So, if anybody's interested, please reach out to me, and I'd like to get, like I said, at least 5 to 10 volunteers. I know there are some Portland clubs that are interested in it. I already talked to Scott, and he said he can get folks, but I'd love to have us be the primary sponsors, have some good outreach for the club. Any questions? Thanks very much.
All this information is going to be in the newsletter that you get sent every Sunday. I'll make sure that it's in there. Barbara, want me to bring the mic back to you?
Okay. So it's spring, and it's time for the Hazeldale Parade. It's on May 16th, which is the third Saturday of the month. It's Armed Forces Day. The club supports communications before the parade in staging, during the parade, along the parade route, and at the end of the parade in disband. You only need a handheld radio to participate. We'll use club repeaters, and the parade starts at 10:30. And depending on where you are, you should be done in the neighborhood of 1 or possibly before. We're taking signups at the table in the back, and you can also sign up online at the club's website. I think it's under scheduled activities, and or you could send an email to hazeldaleparade@w7aia.org, and that's hazeldale-parade@w7aia.org. The parade is a good excuse to get out with your radio and get in the community and enjoy the parade. That was the short summary. Any questions? Okay, well, moving on with CPAC then. We have CPAC flyers at the back too, so if you want to pick one up, you're welcome to it. it's temptation, but it's well worth it too. CPAC is from June 5th through June 7th. It's the Northwest largest ham convention. It is also the ARRL Northwestern Division Conference. The committee always selects a theme, and the theme for this year is Magic on the Air. And we're looking for a lot of it. So it's the 44th year for the convention, and it is in Seaside, Oregon. Friday, there are workshops. There are 3 workshops, as well as the setup for the rest of the convention. And then Saturday is when the convention opens. And there are exhibitors in the flea market as well as seminars. They do have some prizes, and there will be the 7th area QSL card checking. There is a souvenir pin. The winner has been chosen and will be announced in there'd be the April Waves, the newsletter that they send out. If you don't get that and you want it, I think you can go to the website and sign up for it. And if not, let me know and we'll take care of it. On Saturday, they do VE testing. There's the ARRL forum. There's DX and YL luncheons. And the luncheons you have to sign up for when you register because there is really limited capacity for those, and they always do sell out. The banquet keynote speaker is Neil Rapp, Whiskey Bravo 9, Victor Papad Golf, and he's an educator, and he has done a lot of work with getting youth into ham radio. And I think what I've seen of what he's done, it looks like it should be a really interesting presentation. Online registration has started. It'll continue until I think it's about the 26th of May. And you do need to do it online because if for no other reason, you save $5. It's $15 if you do it online, and it's $20 if you do it register at the door. Any questions? Okay, here comes the ask. Well, at some point it was going to happen. We need volunteers, just like every other organization. Any other ham radio organization, it wants volunteers. It runs on volunteers. The whole thing is volunteer, and there are a bunch of subcommittees that you could choose to volunteer with, including the helping exhibitors set up on Friday, helping set up a flea market on Friday. The prize committee, I think they have volunteers, and the security has volunteers. And if Bruce is online,
I'm
he's
here.
welcome to. Okay. It's all yours, Bruce.
Good evening, everybody. Also looking for somebody to take my position. It's not going to be all one way. We have one guy that is doing security, has been doing it for a number of years now. I just need somebody in person to start taking over my position. Unfortunately, I'm out in Idaho, so it makes it a little difficult for me to attend the meetings that I need to. And as Barbara was saying, when you go to get your tickets and you're planning to volunteer, go onto the portal and sign up on that. That way I will get the information and be able to do that. If anybody is interested, let me know. And you can, let's see, that's a good question. I guess you could let Barbara know, and I will get the information from her. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. KG6CI.
I believe on the website, cpac.org, there, under contact us, you can email chair@cpac.org, for instance. I think you can probably also email security@cpac.org to let either Bruce or me know that you might be interested in volunteering to help out with the security planning. So he makes a good point about the volunteer portal, which is on there on the website, and they have a volunteer form to fill out. And they ask a fair amount of questions, but what it does is it gives them a good deal of information. So between what you tell them and what they know about what the needs are, they can probably put you in a really good place to volunteer. In addition to the security opening, every other year, the radio club, the Clark County Club, provides a vice chair for the CPAC committee. Last year I was vice chair. This year I'm chair. Next year, whoever volunteers from here to be vice chair will be the vice chair, and then the current vice chair will move up to chair. The chair and vice chair are alternated each year from the two sponsoring clubs, Aardvark in Washington County and the Clark County Club here. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. It is, and I have been to Dayton, and I've been to a couple of other ham fairs, and Dayton has a lot of energy. It's big. There are a lot of people there, but I think per person there is more energy and more fun at CPAC. So for what it's worth, there you go, and it's only 90 miles from here. So. Any other questions? Well, hope to see you there.
Last year was the first year that I attended CPAC and I volunteered. And I agree with John, it is a lot of fun. The next item, the next opportunity conflicts with CPAC. So a little bit of background, Portland's had two different parades. They've had the Starlight Parade, which has been on the same weekend as CPAC, and then the weekend after that, they've had the Grand Floral Parade. Because of logistics, they need radio operators for both events, TV time, etc. They're combining the two events this year to the Portland Rose Festival Grand Floral Starlight Parade. They couldn't choose a shorter title, I guess. I volunteered last year. It was a lot of fun. Yes, it is conflicting with CPAC. If it wasn't conflicting with CPAC, I'd be there again this year. The Grand Floral Parade is usually held during the day. The Starlight Parade is usually held in the evening. Because it's going to be held on the Saturday that the Starlight Parade is usually held, it's going to be an evening parade. So the parade starts at 6:30 p.m. The parade will run without any commercial breaks. And if you've helped out with parades and have had to deal with TV breaks, it is a mess. Half the entries don't understand to hold up when the TVs aren't on. So last year, I had a gap in the parade of 7 blocks, and that was right at the beginning. They're going to be running it commercial free, so hopefully that'll negate that. So if you would like to help out with that, if you're not going to go to CPAC, contact me. I think it's president@w7aia.org. And my call sign at Gmail, actually, my email address is in the newsletter. You'll find it when you take a look at the events that I'll put in there. Next, Lewis and Clark Trail on the Air. Tim's going to touch. Do you want to touch on it now? So, anticipation. Do you want to talk about field day yet, Dave? Okay. Then, next slide. It is time for Jason.
All right. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. People on Zoom, good to see you. Even though I can't really see you. I'm the new VP, your new vice president. I wanted to go over a few things tonight, mainly introduce myself to those of you who don't know me, kind of go over the presentation theme and the roughed-in schedule for the year, and to ask your help for a thing with next month's meeting. Next slide, please. So that's me, Jason Dinsmore, Kilo 7, Bravo Papa Mike. I still work. I'll probably be working for quite a while. I'm a web application developer. Got my technician license in late 2018 and then upgraded to general in 2021. I like almost everything about amateur radio. Just kind of my nature. Get interested in most everything. And that's my latest accomplishment. I'm the reigning holy moly mini golf champ at my work retreat down in Austin last week. Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, go back for just a second, Dave. Paul in the back, you might recognize there's a Bigfoot 200 ham radio team shirt hiding under my winter's jacket. If you know, you know. Next slide. So as your new VP, I've chosen a theme for 2026. I thought it'd be good to have a theme to kind of make the presentation schedule cohesive and kind of build. And for the theme, I have chosen, next slide, let's grow. Let's grow as operators, as mentors, as volunteers, and as a club. Next slide, please. So why let's grow? Good question. Amateur radio is a hobby with almost endless amount of things to learn about. I don't think any of us know it all. We can grow by learning new modes, building antennas, improving our stations, volunteering. You can grow by helping other people learn, and you can grow by asking questions. And I'm going to mention asking questions a few times in the next few minutes. I think it's really important to ask questions and to feel empowered to ask questions and not pressured. It's okay to ask a stupid question. You don't get an answer sometimes if you don't ask. Next slide. So I've been thinking about this analogy kind of, and a radio club's a little bit like a forest. You've got new operators. They're like seedlings or saplings. They're just kind of getting started. They might not do too well if a big storm hits or that sort of thing. You've got experienced operators. They're like established trees. They're strong. They might be growing, but they're established. They're tied into the ecosystem. They've got the root system in place. They have, pass nutrients through the roots and contribute to the community. Then the very experienced operators, they're like the old trees. Maybe they've had a branch or two fall off. It's laying there on the ground rotting. But those rotting branches they're contributing too. They're supplying nutrients that the forest needs. So the healthy club has trees of all ages and competency levels, and the ecosystem supports everybody's growth. Next slide. So roles in the forest. Growth doesn't always mean personal development. You can, experienced operators can grow by mentoring, sharing your experience, your wisdom, and your stories. Helping new hams get started, supporting club activities.
Can I ask everyone on Zoom to mute? We're getting some unintended audio, believe me.
And the last one I put on there is setting a good example. I don't know if people think about this consciously a lot of times, but every time you check into a net, you should be, portraying yourself how you think somebody should act and comport themselves when they're on the air. If you're participating in an event, you should try to represent the club, show people how it should be done the proper way, and just set a good example. This applies to all of us, no matter what license class or how experienced we are. Next slide, please. So these are the topics I've got kind of roughed in for the year. March night, kind of doing this strategic vision, if you will. Then we have the Camas High School students. Thank you for coming. They're going to be presenting on their Pico balloon launch project that they're undertaking this year. And then Tim's gonna, 87 RUS is gonna do a presentation on RF propagation. Really looking forward to that. Next month, the topic is real world antennas and towers. In May, we've got modern tools and hidden capabilities. June, it's kind of the season, so we're going to talk about field day, and Mike Ritz is going to come and talk about beginning contesting. And I'm hoping that everybody can pick up, maybe not skills, but some ideas of things you might try out at field day to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. July, portable operating and power. There's no meeting in August. We've got the club picnic, but September is emergency communications month. Then October, we're going to do digital operations and DX. November is station optimization. I'm probably going to try to enlist several of you to do a little show and tell that night. Show what's made your station more efficient, little hacks and tricks for getting things set up, and spread the knowledge. December is Christmas parties, so not really a meeting that month. And in January, I've got an advanced topic lined up, and Brian will probably give a little talk as he kind of moves out of the president's role, and I'll probably say a few words as I prepare to move into it. Next slide. So it didn't make much sense to set a growth theme without trying to measure some kind of growth. It's kind of a bummer that field day is so soon in the year, but I chose it because it's kind of the event that the club does that has the most potential for growth, I think. At field day, you have the opportunity to get on the air. If you're interested in kind of hardware side of things, you can volunteer to set up and tear down. We assemble towers, assemble beams, shoot lines up into trees, hang up dipoles, put up verticals with ground radials. Dave's got a UHF, VHF satellite system set up. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to learn. And just by nature, it brings the whole club together. So the goal I chose is to increase the number of operators who get 100 QSOs by at least 25%. I think this is doable. We did a really good job last year of keeping that second seat at stations occupied for a lot of the time. I think we should focus on that more. New operators can sit in that second seat with the more experienced operator and learn, figure out what they're doing. Once you get a feel for kind of the flow of things, hey, maybe you can switch roles. You can be the operator for a while, and the more experienced operator can guide you and just kind of help you out if you get stuck or you hit a tough spot. If I'm good. Yeah, I was about to. Yeah, I was about to say that anyway. The reason I think that we can get 25%, if you got two people sitting there, you both get credit for the QSOs. So in theory, you could bum off enough people and come pretty close. Next slide. I also wanted to set a personal goal for myself. If you read the newsletter last week, I don't have my HF station on the air yet. But it's a modest goal, I'll admit. It's not spectacular, but I've made 2 CW contacts my whole life. So making 100 in a year is a pretty big increase. CW is a skill I want to improve. It pushes me to get my station on the air. It also pushes me to address this little thing called CW mic fright. It's kind of same thing people have on voice. I just don't want to make a fool out of myself on the radio. So I'm going to have to just confront that and push through it. It keeps me learning like everybody else. Hard to tell other people to learn and grow and just not do anything myself. So like I said, be a good example. We should all be trying to improve. So to summarize, this theme's year's theme is Let's Grow. Let's grow together. We help each other grow. The whole forest gets stronger. Yeah, I'd like to encourage everybody to try something new, ask questions, share your knowledge, help somebody else grow, get on the air more. And I'm hoping that everybody finds something that, gets you excited or invigorated and just curious. I'd like to encourage an environment of learning, a culture of curiosity, and somewhere where people make friends and have fun. And I think if everybody's having a good time, then a lot of the other club goals kind of click into place. Next slide, please. So getting to my ask here. Next month's topic is real world antennas and towers. Bernd is going to give a presentation on using a wire antenna in an HOA. He's made like a bazillion contacts with that setup, and I'm sure he's got some pretty reasoned and well thought out thoughts on the topic, and I'm really looking forward to it. The second half of the meeting, I want to do something that we haven't really done the last few years. They're called lightning talks. The idea is that several people will get up and talk about something for 2 to 5 minutes, really short. Next slide, please. What I'd like to do is have 5 to 7 people share what you know or what you're still figuring out. It's exactly what Let's Grow is about. 5 to 7 club members, any license class, any experience level. 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. I'm going to cut you off. And what to share, just take a photo of your antenna or your tower or something along those lines. Email it to me, vprez at w7aia.org, and I'll put together a little slideshow. And when your picture comes up, you can come up and do a little show and tell for a few minutes. If you're in club leadership, it's a great opportunity to make yourself known to the club. And if you're not, it's just a great opportunity to grow. Speaking in public is a growing opportunity. Trust me, it feels like somebody's sitting on my chest. Yeah, if you're interested, email me at vprez at w7aia.org. And I think that's it for this. Not quite. Well, Dave's getting the slides sorted around. Yeah, Camus is next. You may remember in spring of 2024, we kind of supported rather, the Camas High School students to make contact with the International Space Station. And some of us were there and got to witness it in person. It was pretty awesome. And yeah, they're here to talk tonight about their Pico balloon launch, and I will hand it over to them.
November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra, this is Kilo Kilo 7 November Papa India. November Papa India, this is November Alpha 1 Sierra Sierra. So let's go!
Local students successfully made contact with astronauts in the International Space Station. Foxhill's Bonnie Sookman joins us now with more on this out-of-this-world experience. I love the look on their faces when they made that contact, Bonnie.
Right, let's go. Let's do this. You can see how psyched they are because they did it. They made contact with astronauts up in space. Students from an amateur radio club at Camas High made this happen. They spoke with astronauts in the International Space Station after 3 tries. Third time was the charm. So it took a lot of work, including programming an antenna to track the ISS. So on their end, they had a lot of work to do. And after a few attempts, like we said, the students made contact and they were able to speak with Dr. Michael Barrett, a Camas High School alum, up there in space right now. We've also talked to him in the past. So all of this happened while the space station was visible over the horizon for 10 minutes. And the students made use of every one of those minutes. They really made them count with some rapid fire questions.
What is your most stressful experience in space?
He says the most. I think my most special experience was doing spacewalks. I did that on my first mission, and I'm about to do that in about a week again. So I'm really looking forward to putting on that suit and going outside. Over.
What's the most useful thing you've taken away from high school?
Wow. Well, I was inspired by a lot of amazing teachers. You guys may know Dale Croswell, but Jerry McGraw, Dean Gray, Cecil Fleischman, these guys that taught me how to read, how to write, and how to speak other languages. Those are skills that have stayed with me ever since, and I remember those guys implicitly. Over.
What is the funniest moment in space?
The funniest moment to me happens when I've been up here for a while and I see new people arrive and try to get used to zero gravity and fly around and bump into things and get totally disoriented all the time. Over.
That'd be tough. Yeah, it's like rookie. Look at him floating around. He doesn't know what he's doing up here. So before they wrapped everything up, the students also asked Barrett if he had any questions for them.
My question for you would be, do you realize what an amazing place you live in, the Pacific Northwest, Southwest Washington, and being able to go to Camas?
To answer that question, it is a fantastic place in Camas. We get the pleasure of talking to an astronaut that came from Camas, and
the teachers are awesome.
So is the principal. Yeah.
So cool to see. So, of course, Dr. Barrett realized that some of those teachers and the principal were in the room with them. He says he wasn't sure he's sure that was a true statement anyway, but so cool to see all the teachers creeping up with their phones, kind of watching all the action happen. And I feel like I would have questions too, like, what are you guys eating for dinner tonight up there? Like, what's the plan? He said he was about to go on a spacewalk, so
I love to see the students' enthusiasm for what they're doing, right?
Who gets to say they've done that?
Never forget this moment. Who can say that they've talked to astronauts?
Exactly.
Not me. Pretty cool.
Pretty neat.
Cool. Thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Joseph Hoffman, KD7QOW. So I am the Camas High School teacher, and I am the advisor for the Camas High School Amateur Radio and Engineering Club, right? Yeah, they wanted to add engineering to it. So I'm not gonna take any more of your time. I'm just gonna go ahead and let the club present to you because they do have a few requests for the club.
We can get the next slide. All right. I'm Anix Menikis. I'm a sophomore at CHS, and I'm really excited about the engineering side of ham radio.
I'm Rafiq Hamad.
I'm Jacob Weinstock.
And I'm Arnav Chaudhary. Let's go over our plan for our balloon project. So we decided that it'd be best to do this in two phases. First, starting with a Pico balloon, lighter, much simpler, designed to get experience with the logistics, the safety, setting up all of it. By balloon project, we mean like a weather balloon. A Pico balloon is just like a very light weather balloon, doesn't have much sensors on it. But we hope to do this year. And Rafiq, you can expand on the traditional balloon.
Yeah, so with the Pico balloon, when we launch, we intend to gain like much needed experience to launch a more complicated traditional balloon. With the traditional balloon, it can withstand a heavier load, so we can start tracking more data like muon, using muon detector and have atmospheric data over like a long period of time compared to what a Pico balloon can do.
Oh, and in the future, after this project, maybe we might do another balloon, maybe circumnavigate the globe, but we still need to figure out how feasible that really is.
So early on, we were doing simple designs for frame design with a traditional weather balloon. So this isn't the Pico one, this is the larger one. And this is something that I modeled. So it has a multi-level design. For top level is for a muon detector. So that would detect the cosmic rays. And you can see in the Cosmic Watch, bottom right. And then bottom level for Raspberry Pi with the computation. One downside with this, which we learned, is that because it was 3D printed with PLA, it actually added a lot of weight, which was 100 grams. And that was something we learned with weight management will definitely be a large factor for our weather balloon projects.
So I've had the proud pleasure of working on what is kind of the crown jewel of this project, and that is the muon detector. This is what it looks like right now. It was designed by an MIT student, and as you can see, it's super small. It fits in my hand, so it's perfect for a weather balloon. You know, it's only 83 grams, and there's some cool stuff we can do with it. Um, just the fact that we can measure muons on Earth is evidence for Einstein's theory of special relativity. And I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with geomagnetic storms. Those can affect HF radio. And so this thing can help us forecast those storms and not have HF radio get as impacted.
Okay, so now for our ask. Any knowledge resource partners would be great for our project. So the biggest thing we'll definitely need help with is getting logistics. The specifically first, I'll talk about safety. So for the Pico balloon, um, or well, we'll start with the Pico balloon. So we'll probably need some more people to help us with that, and then when we go on to the second phase with the traditional balloon, it'll be easier to get going. I believe we need to get involved with like some agencies. There's the FCC, FAA, local and regional like aviation authorities, making sure we don't like hit a plane or something. Uh, for the frequency, we'll be using like APRS frequencies so we can communicate with the balloon long range. Especially for like the traditional balloon, we want to collect a lot of like sensor data, like with the muon detector and whatever else atmospheric data. We need to be able to communicate back and forth with the balloon. So for oh, and I guess I didn't put this on the slide, but uh, getting like gas for our balloon, like to get it to actually fly. We'll need to make sure that's done safely, and we don't have any experience with that. The launch site for the event will be very important to plan. There are definitely like legal things we have to take into account, making sure like the airspace is clear when we are actually going to launch. And on the next slide, I'll talk about like getting like the tracking for the balloon. So more logistics, right? So mission planning. It's very important that we get a lot of the calculations done correctly. So not all our so like our all our hard work isn't gone to waste. The calculations would be related to like high altitude winds, so that we know where the balloon's going. We can predict its path, and we'll have to notify appropriate agencies for that to make sure there's no like low flying planes in the way or anything like that. Um, oh, and I didn't put this on the slide, but calculating the correct rate of rise for the balloon, so we can get roughly 2 to 3 hour flight maybe for the Pico balloon. Might be longer for the traditional balloon. Not really sure right now. Um, and then for the actual day of the event, we'll need probably 3 separate teams: a mission control, a launch team, and then a recovery team. Kind of self-explanatory. The mission control would be, communicating with the balloon, making sure the sensors are working and stuff like that. Launch team would be preparing to help get the balloon in the air and flying safely. We don't hit anyone with the balloon, stuff like that. The recovery team, if we think it's possible to recover, because it might be expensive, like the balloon, and we might want to get a lot of the stuff back. We'll need a recovery team to go get the balloon. And then we'll need a lot of like strict conditions when we are doing the launch, because like I said, we don't want to waste all our hard work. We'll need to make sure we have like a checklist or something going, and being in contact with the agencies constantly, notifying like the FAA. We'll probably have to like sign waivers as well, to make sure we don't get in trouble for trying to fly a weather balloon in the air, making sure that people know that it's us and not like a Chinese spy balloon or something. So that's it for like logistics. We don't have any other slides, but you guys want to add anything, or Mr. Hoffman want to add anything?
Yeah, so these guys have been working on this for about the last for this year. So I kind of try to set them off on one project per year that they're just kind of working on as a club. Last year it was an SDR, software defined radio, and that did not work out. And they learned a lot from the not working out of the project. And I think 3 of the 4 of you were licensed, or we're working on 2 licenses here. Okay, yeah, a couple, yeah. So other than that though, that's all I've got for the club. So oh yeah.
He asked like what got us involved and interested in ham radio. So for me, I remember I was sitting in class next to Arnav, and I saw him looking at the ham radio like exam, and I was like curious about like what the club was about, and he showed me some more things, and I did some more of my own research, and I figured out you can do a lot of pretty sick things with radio.
So, how I got into ham radio was so I'm in Science Olympiad at Camas High School, and our uh, our David, he's not here right now, but he was our president last year, and kind of still is right now, but it's not really official. But okay, I guess I'm unofficially the president for now, until we have like a proper like election, just like raising hands. But I got into it through David and Arvin, who was in the ISS video. They introduced it to me. I was like friends with them through Science Olympiad, and they were like, "Hey, you want to join this club we're making, Ham Radio?" I was like, "Ham? What's that mean?" And then, just went on from there. Uh, yeah.
So the way I got into ham radio was through a coincidence. So with the muon detector here, I was thinking about doing, my own passion project with building one of these. I was actually trying to work on making a geomagnetic storm forecasting thing. And there was a day at school where all the clubs set up a table. And I passed by the ham radio club, and they were talking about making a weather balloon and potentially putting a muon detector on it. I was like, muon detector? That's what I've been working on. So I just joined the club right there, and now we're putting one on the balloon.
I actually have a very similar story to Jacob, where my passion project wasn't as defined as his was, but I was looking around during the club fair, and then I saw the ham radio, and I saw it was really interesting seeing what they did with the contacting the ISS, and that just really interests me, and I enjoy the engineering side of it. And once I heard about the weather balloon, I was like, "Ooh, I definitely want to do that." So that's why I'm in charge of the CAD modeling for the frame. So just seeing like the multifaceted level that ham radio was doing, that's what really interested me. And then also understanding the HF and contacting other people was really interesting to me as well.
Any other questions out there? Okay. Oh yeah. So you're asking if they've started the project already? We don't have any of that. That's the amount of help that we need as a club. Yeah. There's 2 parts to this. There's the balloon launch part of it, and then there's getting the radio communication part set up. So like with the muon detector, I'm gonna have them build the muon detector, and then we'll get an APRS radio connected to it, or a radio with APRS connected to it, and then put it in different locations and see if we can get communication from it. And then there's the balloon launch. But me and like these guys obviously don't have any experience with balloon launches, and neither do I. So we are asking for we are asking for actual like both legit, like not just resources support, but actual technical support from the club. And yeah. The question is, who should you contact to follow up with it? Excellent. Thank you. So if you didn't hear that, go through Dave, WZAT. Okay. Anybody else? All right, good. Well, I hear you have a full agenda, so I will hand this over to you.
Thank you very much for being here, students. And take a look at the model he's got. It's really pretty cool. Tim, I think you're next. Yep. Take me a minute.
Okay, that sounds good. Good evening. I'm Tim Coleman, KD7RUS. And I tell you, I know our announcements go long, but when I saw the announcements, what I thought was, good grief, we're active. We have folks that are participating with ham radio when it comes to community service. We're helping our own community with CPAC. We're doing fun things. We're doing educational things. And so it's really heartwarming when you see this amount of activity going on with the club. So what I would like to mention is first, and another announcement, Lewis and Clark Trail on the Air. This is actually a fun activity that's hosted by our club. We're the organizing of it. We set up an operating event over 21 days, or excuse me, 16 days over 3 weekends. It starts on June 6th. So if you're looking at June 6th UTC time, it's really 5 p.m. on Friday, June 5th for us locally. So Friday night, it does start on the weekend of CPAC, but then again, there's still a whole lot of time after CPAC for getting involved with this activity. The committee is up and running. We got an excellent committee. Maryland is working hard to get 31 other clubs signed up, 2 for every state, for the 16 states associated with the Lewis and Clark Trail on Air event. And what I'm asking for is I need radio operators. So we're one of the clubs that's going to be calling CQCQ. This is Lewis and Clark Trail on the Air, W7AIA from Washington. And so we need radio operators from Washington to operate. We're asking for each operator to make at least 150 contacts. So over a 16-day period, that's really only 10 contacts per day. And if you're looking at just operating on the weekend, because, like myself, I work, so I only have the weekends, that's only 25 contacts over the 6 days of the weekend. So we do need operators signed up. If you go to the website under activities and just scroll down that activities page, you will see a sign-up page. And if you can't find the sign-up page, contact me or contact Bern Peters. His email address, I think, is up there. Is it? Yes, it is. And Bern, can you raise your hand? There's Bern. And of course, he's speaking next month. So that's another opportunity to say, Bern, sign me up. So what you're going to do when you sign up, you're just going to put your name. And then when we start getting the website up to date and we start, we'll post a schedule. And then you can literally go onto a schedule and post when you want to operate, what band you want to operate. It's a very flexible schedule. So if for some reason I didn't realize I had dinner with my wife going out, and so you can change your schedule if you have to. Very flexible. So we do need radio operators. Okay, let's get with the program. So tonight I want to talk about RF propagation. And I know that sounds like a very heavy subject, but the whole point of talking about RF propagation is to give you a mental model of how radio frequency propagates. And the point of that is the better mental model you have on something that works, the better you'll have understanding it, right? I think we all come from different backgrounds. I'm a licensed electrical engineer. Some of us are teachers and physicists, and we got into ham radio maybe just because we wanted that emergency communications, and so we have just maybe an accounting background. We come from a variety of different backgrounds, but from a technical standpoint of understanding RF propagation, it's really good so that you understand when you heard another ham say, oh, I heard the bands are down, and you're staring at your two-way handheld radio going, oh my, the bands are closed. What does that mean? Does that mean they shut the repeater off? Right? So it's good to have this perspective of really how RF propagation works. I think most of us maybe have heard the analogy when it comes to electricity. Well, think of electricity as water flowing through a hose, right? So your water pressure is voltage, and if you squeeze the hose, that's resistance, like a restriction, and the amount of water that's flowing through the hose is current, right? It gives you a mental model to figure out how things works. Does it actually work that way? Oh, not at all, right? I mean, for one, in actual circuit, the voltage actually, or the current has to go back to the source. We never talk about that with the hose, right? And if it's AC, alternating current, we never talk about the water going back and forth in the hose, right? We never talk about that. But from a just the mental model standpoint, it does help us understand the basics on how electricity works. And so that's what I plan on doing tonight, is stepping you through just some very simple mental models of how we can picture RF propagation, and then talk about some different RF propagation that's important for us. Propagation. Did I say propagation? Propagation is the traveling of radio waves. In this case, we're talking about radio frequency propagation. We're talking about how do radio waves travel. And because how they travel makes a big difference. When you key the mic, something happens. Something happens. Energy comes out of your radio, right, out of your antenna. It goes to another antenna somewhere else and it's picked up. But how does it get there? Is it direct? Does it bounce off the sky? Is it magic? Yes, yes. All right, next slide. Next slide. So we're going to talk about what is RF propagation, because I think any teacher would want to know that right from the beginning. What are you talking about? What are the different types of propagation? How does our environment affect propagation? That's important. How to predict propagation, and what are the radio signals and how do they react? So let's get into some slides, and let's say we're going to start out with getting a mental picture of what's going on. So yes, scientifically, from an engineering standpoint, we can mathematically model radio propagation. We will not be talking anything about Maxwell's equations or the relationship between electromagnetic waves. Okay? Will not. So, but this would still be interesting for the people that understand RF at the physics level. I'm sure you do. And I'm sure Wendy's going, are you going to wear that in public again? Next slide. So this is a very busy slide. It's a slide of the frequency spectrum for electromagnetic waves. And it goes all the way from the lowest frequency or the longest wavelength. Keep in mind that the wavelength and frequency is the inverse of each other. So if you have a really big wavelength, you have a really small frequency. If you have a very high frequency, you have a fairly short wavelength. And that constant in there is the speed of light. So what we see here is, for example, we see AM radio in here. We see an icon for FM radio. How many people listen to the 3-meter band when you were coming over here today? 3-meter band. Yeah, 3-meter band. What's that? That's FM radio, right? FM radio goes from 88 megahertz up to 108 megahertz. So the middle is what? Right at 98 megahertz. And 98 megahertz is the 3-meter band. Now, we don't talk about that if you're not in radio, but for any frequency band, there is a corresponding wavelength. For our repeater use, right, it's 144 megahertz for the 2-meter band, right? 144 2-meter band. UHF, it's the 470 megahertz, so it's 70 centimeters. So we always have this correspondence between frequency and wavelength. And that's important because if you're going to understand how your antenna works, it's really important to know how big your antenna is going to be. So what we also see here, so you see that radio spectrum, and then we also see that as we go higher and higher in frequency, we get into light. So light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And we're going to use light and how light propagates, how it reflects, how it refracts, how it gets attenuated. We're going to think about light in the same way we do radio frequency, because you can't see RF. And if you do, you're probably going to have a really bad day. But you can see light, and light's good. So there's a lot of things that we have experienced in working with light that we can extrapolate and get a better mental picture of how radio waves work. So if we just zoom in just a little bit, so I took some of the noise out of the middle, and you see there's that direct correspondence between the radio spectrum and the wavelength. And that's important, one, for how those radio waves are going to propagate, how they interact with the environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So things change. If you change frequencies and you go higher in frequency or lower in frequencies, how those radio waves interact with the rest of the atmosphere or its environment, it changes. It's not always the same. Next slide. So what is our propagation? We're talking about how radio waves travel, and there's a lot of different things associated with that travel. Some of the pioneers in this was Maxwell, of the Maxwell's equations. We also had Heinrich Hertz, which we have glorified him by using his name as the units for cycles per second. Both did a lot of research in the propagation and traveling of radio waves. So we're going to talk about how waves are conducted, attenuated. That is, sometimes when I mean attenuation, you have taken that signal and you've made it smaller. And it's not as strong as it used to be. And there's a lot of different ways you can attenuate, but common ones are you take that signal and you turn it into heat. It hits a surface and is absorbed and it gets turned into heat. And sometimes it's also scattered, where it's sent into multiple different directions. We're going to talk about reflected and refracted. Next. So this is a very simple model. I have off to the left, I have a signal, and that can be, let's say for argument, that is just a flashlight or a laser pointer. And it's pointing straight at this ideal material. And this ideal material is perfect in that it has no attenuation to it. So think about this as being a piece of glass. It is a crystal clear, perfect piece of glass where light will go through it and not have any loss to it. Okay, that's what I mean by ideal conditions. So what you're going to have basically is when that light hits that piece of glass, some of that light's going to be reflected, but some of it will go through, right? Next slide. So for example, that's me. That's the guy with the smiley face, but a lot more hair. It could be in this room right here, right? There's that light in this room. Let's pick this light right here above my head. I can look directly at that light, and those light rays are going right to my eyeball. If somebody was outside that little window going to the restroom, they could be standing on the other side of the glass. That light goes through that medium, and that means that light is transmitted through the glass. And yet, if you stand at the right angle on this side, if I got into the right place in the room, I could probably stand here and see that light being reflected off that glass surface. The person on the outside of the glass looking in, they would be able to look right through the glass directly at that light. Not to mention they're seeing everybody else in the room. And so why are they seeing everybody else in the room? It's because that light and all the other lights are reflecting off of all of us as surfaces and also going through that glass. Those light rays are propagating. They're traveling. And sometimes they change as they go through that glass. Sometimes when they hit a surface, those light rays, some of them are absorbed, and those that are not absorbed are reflecting red, for example, like that red sweatshirt. But you wouldn't see red if that light didn't already have that red component to it. Next. So I was talking about an ideal piece of glass, a piece of glass that had no loss to it. Doesn't exist. In fact, any medium that we transmit radio waves through, or electromagnetic waves or light, is going to have some amount of attenuation. I would say a vacuum of space is probably the closest that you can get to an ideal conditions. We definitely don't have that here on Earth. So what we do have, though, is if you look at all those components, we have the source that's going towards that material, that blue line that's vertical. We have some of it that's transmitted. We already talked about some of it we know that went through it, but now you got that little squiggle in the bottom, and that is the loss. We're going to always have some amount of signal loss. That is, if I shine that light through a piece of glass, it's not going to be as bright as if I was on this side of the glass looking at the light source. Now, that piece of material there, that could be anything. I'm talking about a piece of glass because I think that's something that we can all visualize. We got a piece of glass right there, and we've all seen, looked out our own windows, and we understand that sometimes we see a reflection. Sometimes we can stand outside and we can see in from the outside. So we understand how those properties work. Next slide. So that material, though, can be incredibly thick. Right now, that pane of glass there is probably no more than 1/8 inch in thickness. But truly, you can have a piece of glass that's 2 kilometers thick. Right? Fiber optic glass that we use in telecommunication, going 2 kilometers is easy. We can go 50 kilometers before we have to put an amplifier. And so literally that light is going down 50 kilometers of a solid piece of glass. And we do see attenuation at the 850 nanometer wavelength, which is just above our visual range. You would have somewhere around 3 dB of loss for every kilometer. That's significant. So we do know that even in the best glass that we have, that we use in telecommunications, there's loss associated with that. Well, that medium could be something else. That medium could be our own atmosphere, right? It could be our ionosphere. So we're looking at something going sideways. What if we were just rotate that 90 degrees? Next slide. Yeah. Does it change how things propagate? No, the same principles apply. We still have a transmitted source going up. We still have a certain amount of attenuation through that medium because it's not perfect. We have a little bit of reflection, and then some of that signal goes through. So this is kind of goofy and it's on its side, so let's go to the next slide. This is better. So really, when we're talking about radio waves, we're talking about that upper area of medium is our ionosphere. And the ionosphere for us is very important because at certain wavelengths, it works as a reflector. Think of it as a reflector. It truly is a refractor for you purists out there, but it's a reflector. And in some cases, at certain wavelengths, signals go right through it. So could you imagine when you might want a signal to go through our ionosphere? Like when you're talking to the International Space Station, right? The ionosphere is somewhere between 50 kilometers and 1,000 kilometers. That's the rough limits. And the International Space Station's what, at 400 kilometers? It varies a little bit, but in that orbit, if you didn't have a radio signal at the right frequency that would go through the ionosphere, they would have a very hard time communicating with you. We would have a very hard time communicating to satellites. We would have a very hard time talking to astronauts that go to the moon. We'd have a hard time talking to spacecraft like Voyager that's beyond our solar system at the moment. So we do need to understand radio frequencies that, depending on what frequency they are, the propagation will be different. Now, 20 meters. We probably got some HF operators in here. You know, on a really good day, 20 meters, 5 watts, and just a rusty piece of wire, and you can talk to South America. Isn't that amazing? Well, chances are that if you're getting that very good propagation from that signal bouncing off the ionosphere, that very little of that signal is actually going through the ionosphere. So I haven't been on the International Space Station, never will, get a little motion sickness. But I'll bet you it would be interesting to see if they had 20-meter HF capabilities on what they would hear on a good day for everyone down here. Would they get any signal at all? I doubt if they would. Next. So what I said was, well, let me get a drink of water. What I said was when we're talking about signals going up the ionosphere, it reflects. Yeah, it doesn't really actually. Some of it reflects. In truth, what it does is it refracts. And we've all seen refraction before. Next slide. So here's one example of refraction. We send white light through a prism, and what happens is, one, the wavelengths react differently. The shorter wavelengths don't bend as much. The longer wavelengths bend more. Or excuse me, just the opposite. Let's see, violet, that's what, 400 nanometers? So that's a short wavelength. And I think the red is somewhere in the 600 nanometers. So that's the longer one. So we see that they react differently. The frequency makes a difference on how much bending of the light. But we do notice that that light bends as it goes through that medium. Glass has a different index of refraction than what the air does, than what air or vacuum has. And with that index of refraction change, this is the only physics that you get that I'm going to touch on, is that you get this bending of the light. And next slide. Here's another example of refraction. We've all done this before. Stick a pencil in a glass of water. Mom says, don't put the pencil in a glass of water. So you take it out. But you noticed something when it happened, right? It looked goofy. Or you took your fishing pole and you put it in the clear water. Dad slaps you upside the head, said, get the pole out of the water. You're fishing. But you noticed something looked weird when you put the pole in the water, right? I had an interesting upbringing. I just want to share that with you. But you notice that the light looks, or when you put that stick in the water, or that pole in the water, or a pencil in water, water has a different index of refraction than what air does. And it causes the light to look like it bends. And so it's not really where you think it is. It looks like that pole's bending. It's not. It's just that the light, the way it comes back to your eyeballs, is bending. The same type of principles happen with radio waves. So when radio waves hit the ionosphere, they actually bend. And they will bend enough, because the ionosphere is deep enough, it'll bend enough that it actually looks like a reflection. So it's easier to talk about reflection because mentally we know when something hits something and it careens off of that surface, it bounces back. To us, mentally, that's reflection. But radio waves, they're actually refracting and they're bending in the ionosphere. So, did we skip one? Maybe not. Okay, let's go to the next one. So let's talk about the different travel radio signals can travel. Well, one is free space. This is the ideal place. So we put one antenna in outer space and we put another receiver in outer space. It's just the vacuum of space between the two, and there's no particles, and that is free space. We do a lot of modeling in free space and engineering because it's easy. We don't have to take into account attenuation and index of refraction changes and a whole bunch of other things. So we use this for ideal modeling of antennas. But rarely does it ever happen here on the ground. What we have here in the ground, if we really have something what we would call free space, is more or less direct wave communication. Next slide. So open space we can think of is just, there's nothing between, say, a transmitting antenna and a receiving antenna. So you're really not getting any reflection. You're not getting any bouncing or refraction off the ionosphere. When we talk to the repeater with our handy talkie, that's more or less a direct wave communication. It's not ground wave. I know we hear some people say, oh, you know, we must have good ground wave propagation. Ground wave happens at very low frequencies. Next slide. So this open space and direct wave communication, this is kind of like what we have with Larch Mountain and a repeater, and we have direct, almost line of sight, not quite, but almost line of sight between the different radio receivers, our walkie-talkie and the repeater, or mobile and the repeater. Next slide. Ground wave. Ground wave occurs at very low frequencies. This is where we actually get some coupling of the radio, the electromagnetic wave, some coupling with the Earth. And so it causes that radio, or excuse me, that radio wave to actually hug the Earth and go a distance. So AM radio, that's a fairly low frequency. We'll often get ground wave propagation with shortwave and AM radio signals. You ever notice, anybody ever notice that at night AM radio signals are stronger? I grew up as a kid in Wyoming. All we had was AM radio, and you only had it at night. And there were times when you could hear stations just far away. Well, it wasn't because the radio stations turned up their radio stations at night. In fact, the FCC typically has rules that says they actually have to turn some stations down at night. It's just that because of the way the atmosphere is at the time in the ionosphere, those radio waves propagate better during the day, and there's less noise from the D layer. So ground wave is where you get this coupling, but it only happens at low frequencies. Next slide. Sky wave. Sky waves typically is what we experience with HF. If you're talking a long distance with HF, you're bouncing a signal off the ionosphere, like with a near vertical incident sky wave antenna. We do that with 40 meters often to communicate locally, like say within the state. You're talking about sky wave. You're literally taking a signal, you're bouncing it off the ionosphere, it's coming back down. Next slide. So skywave refraction, yes, we had this example of where we look at light and it bends. Next slide. And we can just turn that upside down and just think how that's going to be. Same thing with radio signals. Those radio signals go up and they bend. It's just that the ionosphere is so thick that you get more bending and more bending and more bending, and it really does look like reflection when you're all said and done. Next slide. The atmosphere, we have multiple layers in the atmosphere of the ionosphere. During the day, we have the D layer. So D for D layer. We have the F1 and the F2 layers. Those are much higher in altitude. At night, they combine into one, but during the day, they're broken into two different layers. And then we also have the E layer. So if you ever hear anybody talking about sporadic E, that is where you momentarily or for a short period of time, the ionization reflection will occur in the E layer, and then you're going to be able to talk, say, some long distance on 10 meters or 6 meters, because that E layer comes in and it works as a nice reflector to get your signal out to a long distance. Next slide. So here's just an illustration showing the different layers. We see that the D layer, it's a fairly short layer, and because of that, you're going to get a fairly shallow bounce. At night, the D layer goes away because the sun goes, right? It's we're in the shadow of the sun, and so that D layer goes away, and what you then have an F layer, and the F layer is much higher. And so that F layer being much higher is going to allow that signal to bounce further over the horizon. Next. Next. Sky waves. So as charged particles of the ionosphere increases, the amount of reflection or refraction also increases. But there's a limit, and it's going to vary. So what's going to ionize the ionosphere? What's the big radio transmitter that we don't see it every day. We hear about it on the news. But what's the big radio generator in the sky? The sun. It's really important we pay attention to it, right? So the sun is what's causing this ionization. So during high amounts of solar activity, solar storms, we get a lot of particles that get thrown off the sun. And when it hits the Earth, it causes that ionization layer, the ionosphere, to become charged, and we get a lot of reflection. Next. So there's something called a critical frequency. It's measured daily. NOAA, I think, does it. I think NASA does experimenting. And typically they take a 7 megahertz signal and they shoot it up in the sky, and they take a look to see what the signal strength is. And it's called a maximum usable frequency, the MUF. One thing, next slide, that they've also, it's a property of that critical frequency in the ionosphere, the next slide, is, oh, could we go backwards? Nope. Okay. Well, what you're going to see in the future slide is that if you change the angle that those radio waves hit the ionosphere, you can actually talk at a higher frequency. So I think that goes back to Snell's law. Look the guy up. He was famous. And so what he's talking about is that as if you can only do 7 megahertz, oh, next slide. If you can only do 7 megahertz, if you increase the angle, you might be able to go up to 14 megahertz. And if you increase the angle even more, you might be able to go up to 28 megahertz. So even though the MUF is registered at 7 megahertz for that particular day, you can actually talk much higher in frequency, but you're going to be looking at shooting your signal off the ionosphere at an angle. Next. Propagation, there's a variety of different ways to understand what's going on with propagation. So one is to look at the MUF map. So here is the website that shows the different mapping of the highest usable frequency. And typically the highest usable frequency corresponds also with the daylight hours, because once again, the sun is activating the ionosphere and improving that reflector. Next slide. So predicting propagation. So some basic rules of propagation: high frequencies during the day, low frequencies at night. So just like I said, AM radio comes in great if you're away from power lines. It comes in really good at night. AM radio, not so good during the day, unless you get a very local station. During a solar minimum, and so when we're talking about solar minimum, solar maximum, that is the cycle of sunspots where we have a high amount of sunspot activity or a low amount of sunspot activity. Some say it's an 11-year cycle. Purists will say it's a 22-year cycle because every 11 years, the polarization of the sunspots actually change from counterclockwise to clockwise. I like to go with 11 and just be 11 years and just be part of the crowd. So, so during the solar maximum, a lot of solar activity, a lot of ionization, really good to get more and more higher frequencies that go a long distance. During the solar minimum, not a lot of good reflection. And so you're going to really suffer with the higher frequencies, the HF band, and you're really working with the lower frequencies, or you're using some type of a weak signal mode. Next. So how do you predict the propagation? Well, one is MUF, the forecast. You can look at that. I would say the number one, listen. Listen to your radio. You can look at solar prediction. I'll have a slide up there for that, but listen to your radio. Listen to the beacons. There is a website that publishes a whole bunch of different beacons. And if you can't hear the beacon, chances are if you were to transmit, you probably wouldn't be heard going in the same direction on that same band either. Here's a variety of different websites I've listed here. WWV. I periodically used to listen to WWV back in the old days just to set my watch so it was accurate, but WWV is still transmitting. They transmit a time clock. Can you hear the time clock? Well, chances are if you do, then you have decent propagation on that frequency. Sometimes you can actually hear through a delay WWV out of Colorado, Fort Collins, and then you can later hear it out of Hawaii. So poor DX doesn't mean no DX, right? Poor DX means that you don't have the best propagation. You're going to have to work harder. You might have to be looking at a weak signal mode, but it doesn't mean that there's no propagation whatsoever when there's not a lot of ionization. Where we have problems and where there's way too much ionization, there's a geomagnetic storm, and it's causing a lot of noise and a lot of disturbance in the upper atmosphere. Next. Other ways to predict propagation. Here's a list of different beacons and a website you can go to. and tune into those frequencies at different times, and you listen for the call sign. And there's a lot. There's whisper mode. There is different reflectors out there that you can put a Morse code, your call sign in Morse code or RTTY, and it'll tell you where it was picked up from. So there's dozens and dozens of different places to figure out what propagation is. Next. Here's another one, DX Escape. It'll tell you where it's heard, different stations. Next. This is one I look at constantly. This is at QRZ.com. This will pop up on the homepage all the time, and it gives me some of the basics. SFI in the upper corner, solar flux index. The solar flux index is a direct correspondence to how many sunspots are out there. If you're in the number of 60, that's not good. That's pretty low. If you're up in 120, that's great. If you're up in 175, that's magic time. You're talking with 2 meters to Hawaii or something like that. You want to see A numbers that are really low. You want to see K numbers that are really low, because that has indicates what's going on with the geomagnetics of our upper atmosphere. And then it actually tells you geomagnetic field in the lower right corner, very quiet. You want quiet. You want the atmosphere to be quiet so that you can be heard. Next. And here's another N2 LVI, has a little bit of a guide. Of course, you know, what's the, what do we all know? Green is good, red is bad. So you can see very high sunspot numbers or very high SFI. That's good for propagation. And when you see very low A index and K index, that means the geomagnetic or ionization, that field is quiet, low noise. Next. Atmospheric disturbance. So something that we can have from a geomagnetic storm is atmospheric disturbance. And so how do you picture that? Well, think about looking across, say, a pool or a pond, right? When it is calm, you can see just a perfect reflection. But as you start getting wind or thrashing around, what happens? You start seeing these ripples. Next slide. And so the same thing can be pictured with our upper atmosphere. When you start getting these large geomagnetic storms and solar winds hitting our upper atmosphere, you get all this turbulence in our ionosphere. And think about that as just creating noise. So even though you might have 175 or 200 on the solar flux index, if you have a very high A index and K index, that probably means there is so much noise, it doesn't matter how much reflection, your signal is being distorted, it's being scattered in the upper ionosphere. Next. And just, by the way, I'm wrapping up here, just a couple more slides. There is the strange stuff, and there's some strange stuff out there. We see this, this knife edge type of propagation pattern. We see that with our repeaters, right? How many times have you listened to the repeater and somebody's driving and somebody says, and you hear that talk, 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 talk as they're driving along and they kind of fade in, fade out, very choppy? Well, that's probably experiencing some type of knife edge propagation, where they're next to some type of a sharp edge, and that signal, they're driving through the different chops of the signal, and I think we call it picket fencing. The Fresnel zone, man, that's a strange thing too. You can have a signal that's only this long, no longer than this microphone, but the Fresnel zone says, based on a few calculations, I might need something close to the width of a football field to shoot that signal down, because it creates this cone. And if there's anything in the cone, it will attenuate the signal. So if anybody here have ever played with microwave line of sight antennas alignment like Rick has, he'll tell you all about it. It's not a matter that you can just see that other antenna right between two buildings. Those buildings are too close. It'll still attenuate the signal. That's some strange stuff. I think I got one more slide. Yeah, sporadic E, that's unpredictable. As I mentioned, typically we have the best propagation of sporadic E for some reason during the solar minimums, not during the solar maximums. and it comes and goes and it's hard to predict. There's a thing called tropospheric ducting, right? We're in the troposphere, and people in Hawaii have actually talked on 2 meters to people on the US mainland with 2-meter radios with just a duct that forms in our troposphere, bouncing the signal all the way from here to Hawaii. It's a really odd phenomena. And then the weirdest one I've ever heard is magnetospheric ducting, where actually a radio wave couples to the different flux lines of the Earth, and a signal will propagate. Now, you got to be a NASA scientist or something to figure out how that signal actually propagated and that it wasn't something else. But that's a real thing, and it's pretty strange. So I think that's it. I think that was the last slide. Once again, where do you find more information? Highly recommend the ARRL Handbook, Chapter 21. Refer to the Radio Propagation and Principles and Practice by Ian Poole. And that's all I have. So it's getting late, but I will entertain a few questions. Any questions? Steve. What's the name of I didn't get the name of that? dxmaps.com. So Steve's recommending dxmaps.com as another good source to understand how signals are getting out in RF propagation. Right. So let me summarize and paraphrase. WWV, if you want to use that to understand propagation, don't just focus on the 10 megahertz signal. Go to the website, look at all the different frequencies that WWV uses, and use your radio and tune into those to understand how propagation is taking place on those frequencies. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Dave, and we'll do the 50-50. Or Brian.
So we're a service club, so we do social things. The weekly breakfast Thursday morning at the Kitchen Table Cafe over near Evergreen High School on 136th. And the monthly lunch this month is at Olay's Outpost Tap House and Pub on 4th Plain. And that will be in the newsletter as well. As you can tell, I push the newsletter. Mike Bokanson does a fantastic job with it. If you don't get it by email, let one of the club officers know, and we'll make sure that you're on the email list. But everybody who's current on their dues should be on the email list. Next slide. Now it's Dave's turn.
So one of the best contests of the year is coming. And the reason I call it one of the best, everybody else. We're trying to figure out what's wrong with this mic. So bring it around a little bit, be patient. So you work the 160 meter band all the way through 10 meters. It's a 2-day contest. It runs a full 48 hours. And you can work stations. You can work stations that are international, DX, Canada. The amount of points vary. So in other words, if I talk to someone in Japan, on one band it's 3 points, on another band it could be 6 points. So the points that you get for each queue so varies. And the cool thing about this is that you can be a multiplier because of your prefix. So there's only 26 Whiskey Zulu 8s. And so as a consequence, people want to work me because I count as a multiplier. These contests where when you do this, you can be really valuable and not be a big gun. So it's a lot of fun to do. Also on the March 4th, 15th, there are a host little QSO parties. There's actually a party that is on the same date as the WPX contest. I'm not sure what the rationale for that is, but that's got to be really confusing. A QSO party on the same day. Anyway, that's it for the contesting. Get on and just have some. It's going good now.
Next slide. Okay, stop the recording. And we'll turn time over to James.